Work there? I don't know if that'll go though. All right, excellent. Welcome. Today I'm talking about when Agile and AI collide. Brilliant. So a little bit about me. I'm Glyn Roberts. As we're at the CTO Craft community, you're probably all sick of me. I'm a regular speaker and moderator at CTO Craft. I'm one of the London Mixer hosts. I have around 20 years of experience in industry, and I've been CTO for multiple businesses across the UK and Europe. Currently, I'm CTO of Digital Solutions at Vention. You'll find our booth downstairs. We've got 2 pieces of Lego to give away, so get your badges scanned. We're an agency with over 3,000 engineers based across 11 countries in Europe, Asia, and the US. Now, introductions are out the way. Let's talk about when AI and Agile collide. So, what AI am I actually talking about? AI will profoundly impact all industries and professions in the coming years. But for today, I'm only considering AI that can be directly used for development teams' activities. This does actually cover quite a lot, though. So you've got code generation. Many of your teams may have already trialed Copilot or Code Whisperer, where it can understand developer queries, generate code snippets in real time. Testing and debugging, things like Apply tools, automate the testing process, identify bugs, visual inconsistencies. Design assistance, things like Adobe Sensei for design suggestions. Project management tools. Existing tools like Teams Premium and Notion are already starting to incorporate AI into their platform. We probably expect more to come through. So, things like summarization of meetings, prioritization, content generation, ChatGPT, we've probably all used that for images, text, music, and videos, which is of course coming. And user experience, where, IntelliMyze, for example, can analyze user data to personalize content, layout, and interactions. I am not discussing full developer pilots here. Devin, incredibly well marketed. And there's other tools out there as well, like GPT Pilot, which was technically the first, not Devin. But they're not ready yet, and a completely separate discussion. So I'm mainly focusing on co-pilots and tools that can help our existing engineering teams now, or are expected to come within the next 1 or 2 years. So the benefits of AI, why I'm doing this talk. Generative AI is rapidly reshaping the software development domain. It's not just a tool, but a paradigm shift as well. So the way that we actually do development with accelerated development, automated testing, and adaptive predictive capabilities gives the expectation that our teams can work faster. So from some examples from some recent Copilot productivity challenges, GitHub Copilot results in supposedly 55% faster development, AWS Code Whisperer 57% faster, but this is all data from their blogs. They set the challenge, which members they were using I'm not sure of, but even if we don't believe these percentages, there clearly is improvement expected to be benefited from. And the reason why I'm giving this talk is at the end of last year, I did this with one of my teams that were on the bench, 2-week project to build an MVP. It took them 3 by using Copilot, unfortunately, but obviously this is one of the issues of getting used to tools and obviously having these tools become better. So as developers get better at using these tools, and these tools are going to keep on improving, they're never going to get worse, it's going to be expectation for this to be a standard to use the tools, and obviously for our teams from both CEOs and investors to actually have higher performance from the teams that we run. What is Agile? Every company has their own version of Agile or Scrum, and I'm not here to fight about this, but Agile has long been the cornerstone of software development, championing the principles of iterative development, team collaboration, and customer-centric feedback. Its flexible and human-focused approach have been instrumental for companies to drive success, and the key 4 values, which I'm going to come back to a little bit further on, because I think these values actually start to change a little bit as we start moving further forward with AI. But individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. So, what is the impact? If we expected that the way we run teams will need to change with Agile's operational efficiency becoming more embedded into the way development teams, we expect to see faster development and reduced human coding, automated testing, creating faster and better coverage, reduced project management and manual tasks for them to actually be completing, and even predictive analytics to advise on changes, and even instantly customization on platforms could actually be implemented as well. So touching on these a little deeper. Development speed. So if we're expecting 55% faster or 40% faster, even 30% of coding from our engineers, then the amount of human coding is expected to be reduced. This means that more work needs to be available to them to actually be able to continue working, otherwise they get blocked. There's also the opportunity to pay down technical debt. LLMs can explain code, write documentation, develop test cases, and suggest optimizations. So the expectation here is this should all increase the development speed further over time too. Categorization is going to become more important and actually should become easier with AI being able to recommend these things. So this will all be the benefit of future AI features to actually, which I'm going to touch on in the next couple of slides, for better context to be aware of the work that's actually being completed. Story point estimations, our pain. This sounds complicated and humans struggle with this, and most developers fight back about ever giving an estimation, as we know. If the right data is actually being collected, like historical sprint records, well-documented user stories, estimations can actually be relatively accurate. Obviously, there'll be exceptions, so understanding why these particular exceptions exist and are harder is a human job, our engineer's job, and ideally you want to be feeding this information back into the ticket for future reference. But this is going to place a greater emphasis on the discussion aspect of Agile, which is great, rather than the estimation time you spend itself. So great time-saving opportunities. Prioritization, of course, is super important in Agile, and we achieve this currently with sprint planning and backlog grooming. If categorization, great context, historical sprint data, and goal clarity is available to an AI, then these tasks should actually start to become automated. They can support with sorting, planning, prioritization, and building acceptance criteria for your tickets and sprints. Likely, this could even extend further into assigning most suitable engineers to a task based on their capability on a certain task or maybe their availability. And something that we don't want to talk about, they could even potentially provide performance reviews. But let's not talk to developers about that because that's horrible. Likely, one person will only be required to actually review and approve the plans generated by an AI. This will obviously free up the rest of the team members to do real deep work instead of supporting project management tasks. And this is where I think the biggest impact's happening. If they're able to move away from their day-to-day activities outside of coding, then there's more time available to actually be coding or utilizing AI for coding. And stand-ups, obviously the goal of which is to provide status updates and a rundown of current blockers. An AI-generated summary of the team with blockers assigned to relevant teammates all feels close to reality already. It doesn't sound that complicated. So this could extend further, like evolving priorities and to-do lists to keep developers focused on their work in real time. So if I'm coming to an end of my current ticket, it could then identify, 3 PRs should be prioritized for you before you then carry on the next BAU task. I do believe that stand-ups offer more value than just status updates, though. So I expect some form of human stand-ups is always going to continue to exist. So all these changes will reduce the day-to-day work required by the team. Right then, so history of development. As we all know, the industry used to have waterfall as its main model that we followed. Full planning of the project and understanding all the requirements at the very start. But obviously, this had a very slow release cycles of 6 months, 12 months or longer, with obviously a very high cost before actually getting anything to the market. Rightly so, the industry moved away more towards an Agile approach or Scrum approach with 2-week cycles with regular releases, scope reduction and prioritization, obviously allowing a lower cost to validate your product and get to market. Great move for everyone. Now, with AI allowing more to be created inside a 2-week cycle, the acceptance testing or other parts of the development life cycle may become a blocker with more work being produced. So if we are producing, let's say, twice the amount, maybe a 2-week cycle is going to have too much in it to be effective to actually release. And we could even be having advisory changes created by the AI also. meaning that the plans actually change daily. So even trying to do sprint planning may go out the window if there is an automated fashion of planning being automatically assigning tasks as and when needed. This is what I think the Agile 2.0, or whatever the new name is actually going to become. This is obviously not about the removal of Agile. It's about forging a new and more effective hybrid model to improve the way that we work productively. So coming back to the Agile values, I'm not sure how much pushback I'm going to get back later on about this, but the first two, I think, start to change a little bit now. Individuals and interactions over processes and tools. I think we're now having to focus more on the process and tools than previously, as individuals and interactions are starting to be reduced or even replaced with AI activities. Obviously, if we've got AI tools in place at different role levels inside the business, and there isn't a process to validate them and check them, that's now going to become a much bigger issue for us. And working software over comprehensive documentation. Obviously, working software is important, but that now ideally becomes easier with more AI-supported generated coding. So therefore, working software hopefully is not going to be as difficult. As I say, this might be a little bit triggering for some. But as more code is created, the documentation on what decisions were made and why is going to become more important than previously, especially if there is actually a move towards AI pilots. The AIs are going to need to understand the previous decisions and why they were in place to be able to build the platform and continue to run it. But that's obviously a bit further down the path if that even becomes a reality. And customer collaboration and responding to change remains as is. I'm not saying those need to change at this point. So what are the challenges that we're facing? Hallucinations, as we're all aware of, anyone that's been playing around with the generative AI stuff. Engineers or project managers, whoever's using these tools, will need to be prompted in a specific way to actually be happy with the result. This, of course, adds friction and can slow down the adoption, or even say, oh, this is a waste of my time. I spend so much time trying to create a prompt, I might as well just do it myself. And it's always important to currently keep generative AI outputs overseen by a human, so as a sanity check to make sure you're not talking about some zebra crossing a road. One role moving faster than the rest of the team. This is probably what I'd say is the biggest takeaway. So for the people that have read the goal, we know that the system can only deliver a product as fast as its slowest part of the system. So just improving the developer speed does not actually improve the whole overall team's performance if the rest of the team are not actually also improving. So I think this is important, especially if you've got pressure to say, oh, your engineers should be using these AI tools to produce better code. Why are we not seeing 30%, 40% output? Well, if the rest of the system isn't actually increasing their performance too, then it's never going to get through the end of the pipe. So, so you need to move as a team. If developers are speeding up with co-pilots, what co-pilots can the PMs, QAs, or other members of the team also be utilizing? Resistance to new technologies is actually surprisingly more common than I would have thought, especially from the engineering world that we're in. It's another blockchain or virtual reality is one that comes up. It'll be forgotten about in a year's time. I could do it better myself is another common one. This is more from the more experienced engineers with complex IDE setups and macros so they can shortcut and write functions like nothing. Or there's even the concern about putting themselves out of a job. It's important to remember, so obviously these are concerns where you need to have these conversations, discuss with them, and obviously position why this is important to be incorporating. And it's obviously important to remember that software development is not just about coding, which is why 30% productivity improvement with generated code tools isn't going to be 30% improvement for the team. So understanding the complexity and translating to business problems to be solved is still vital to ensure you're actually building the right things, which is where the engineering team still comes in. So what new skills do we need? Embracing the transformation, pinpointing areas of friction or inefficiency and finding solutions to reduce these. As we go through our daily life, we become very easily comfortable with the way that we do things. We spend time doing stuff which could be automated or be solved with the AI that's starting to come out into the market. So obviously the possible return on this investment can be huge. Trialing fast and rejecting fast. There are so many new AI tools coming available. So accepting new trials very willingly is the best way to identify what works for your teams, but also rejecting quickly if they're not obviously bringing the gains that you need. So it's important to be tracking the key metrics that you want to be measuring to prove success, be it story points completed, error rates, or other efficiency scores. And prompt and data engineering. Understanding the best way to use these tools and what data needs to be available is critical to actually having success. So upskilling may be required to understand how these systems work and how to get the best results out of them. As those that have been playing around with the AI models that exist, you need different queries for different models to actually get a similar result for what you're looking for. So it's not a simple case of you can learn this once. So as a summary, AI will change the way we run our teams over the next year or two. We expect less time spent on status updates, agile events, project organization, and estimating stories. We expect human coding to be reduced with less errors, improved quality, and data-driven recommendations of next actions to proceed with. This should allow for more time for the team members to collaborate, be creative, and solve the most pressing problems and do deep work, which is obviously the most important thing, keeping deep work available. Engineering will continue to involve humans working together and not be automated, unless if these developer pilots actually become real, but there's a lot of skepticism around that, even for myself. So I expect agile methodologies to evolve to better accommodate these changes. So as the key members to remember as we go forward, improve as a team. One role speed improvement is not going to result in increased team performance. We're still in a world of hallucinations, so please validate any AI-produced materials. And use these technology advances to solve the most pressing problems of your business. Thank you for listening, and yeah, any questions? Okay. Should I be asking out to the audience, or will I get someone on the screen?
You might get someone slide out on the screen.
Okay.
Do we have questions?
If we don't have anything on the screen, any questions from the audience, you're welcome to put your hand up. Oh, here we go, one from the front.
What are hallucinations you keep referring to?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, so hallucinations is when you ask a generative AI something and it comes out with something that's completely crazy. So in other words, I say, who is Glyn Roberts? And it'll come along and say that I'm a female working in San Francisco that does pole dancing or something, something that's completely not me. So hallucinations are generated where the data models aren't able to produce the right type of solution you want. This can be solved with decent prompting. So therefore, being able to ask the right questions in a clear, concise way to help the model give you the right answers. But there are often cases where asking a question, even quite detailedly, gives you something that's completely incorrect. So in a coding standpoint, if you ask for, give me a form, and then it gives me something completely different, this is why you need to be validating the output and not just saying, oh, it's providing me this, it must be right. So you still need to be skeptical about what generative AI gives you. No problem. So are you aware of any products dealing with the requirements side of the equation? So this is about collecting requirements and discovery, I'd assume. So GPT Copilot, GPT Pilot was the first pilot piece that was available on the market. It's on GitHub, it's open source. It's not bad. Essentially, you're able to, I think it's written in Python, you're able to just write down what you want and it will constantly ask more questions to you to understand what your needs are, then it actually tries to generate the code for you. The question piece I feel is actually really interesting because it does actually ask you questions you weren't thinking of yourself. You say, I want to build an e-commerce website to sell shoes. Okay, what type of shoes, what type of sizes? Then it'll start thinking, can you buy different shoes sizes for different feet? And start giving you different examples like this. So it's an open source solution available on there. I'd assume that we're going to see more products like this come out. For each stage of the software development lifecycle, I'm sure there's businesses out there written AI all over their pitch deck, getting investment funding to say, I can solve this part of the software development lifecycle to help businesses, and we're going to be a multi-million-pound business. So I expect much more of these types of products to be available to us. So next question, 30% increase in productivity, is that code only or the whole SDLC lifecycle? So for the examples that I showed where it's 55 and 57%, that was purely from a code productivity standpoint, from the information there. I would assume that I would expect 30% to be a very realistic target as an overall. Essentially, because there is a lot of waste by having to do this manually, essentially taking an engineer away from his daily work to then do some estimations, to do some backlog refinements, to change, to update the categorization. This is all stuff is taken away from deep work and slowing him down. If he's getting less interruptions and an AI is even prioritizing his deep work time, I would expect, a much heavier improvement in their productivity. Will Gen AI put the final nail in the coffin of Scrum Masters as a role needed? As we look further forward, right now I don't think so, but I think as we look further forward that the roles are going to change of what we do on a day-to-day basis. I'd say if project management tasks are actually becoming a lot more easier to manage, then the PM roles, the Scrum Master roles, they're all going to move more towards platform managers. So they're going to be much more focused on the product side of the business and trying to direct the AI around that rather than having to manage people directly. So that would be my assumption of the direction. But obviously, we're talking like several years ahead here where it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. But it's obviously good to ask the questions and start thinking about this as we are building our teams over the next couple of years and trying to adapt to the change that's coming in from the new products that are available to them. Have you experienced or seen survey figures showing the productivity impact for teams, non-coding related? So coding related, I have, like I said, with my own team, the first time we trial it, it fails. Essentially, it took 3 weeks instead of 2. But that was a training piece, that was an education piece and how to use it. So my statement of, as our guys get better at using the tools, not just the tools themselves, there's going to be the improvement seen from that. But outside of the coding piece, I haven't seen any percentages yet. As we see, like Notion has AI capabilities, Teams Premium has AI capabilities for summarization. When we do meetings, you have summarization straight away. So instead of having to have the project manager or Scrum Master having to write up reports of what was discussed, this is available to you 5 minutes after the call. So I can see productivity improvements already. I haven't got any clear percentages of how much time they spend or what that really looks like just yet. You cover quite a lot of ideas. Apologies, that's always what I do in my presentations. I always throw too much content in and go too quickly with it. Which of the things you covered have you seen deliver the largest impact so far? Again, it's about moving as a group. So essentially, and why? It's about moving as a group. So as I say, if just one piece is working, so every time you use Zoom or Teams recordings, just providing that summarization is great, or, and sometimes there's hallucinations inside of there where you laugh about it when you read over it. But again, it has to be done together. We've got some engineers that absolutely adore the co-pilots. They say they're so much faster. You'll have junior engineers that struggle with it because they don't understand the context or what the produced result should look like, and they're wondering why the tests are failing. So yeah, I don't have a golden bullet of what you should be trialing first. It has to be a team effort in all areas. Your company is an agency, yes. Has Gen AI affected client expectations? Does it change the way your clients are thinking about projects and how they see your role as an agency? It's slowly going that way now. So the reason why we started kicking off trials last year was because some of our clients were already asking our engineers to utilize Copilot tools for their development. Obviously, with more fixed price projects or project-based, the expectation is about higher output at a lower cost. So for us to be competitive, we have to do this. So I'd say that not just inside agency, but also inside product businesses, the CEOs, investors, directors are assuming that you need to be able to do more with less. Essentially, the economy isn't great right now. Obviously, there's been a lot of layoffs, and they want to see as much value coming out of the business as possible. For that, the engineers have two choices. Either they work more hours, which obviously we wouldn't want, or they're able to adapt and adopt tooling, which is going to help them produce more results to obviously meet a higher output from that time. So yes, I've definitely started to see it. It's not been terrible yet, saying that, okay, as an agency, we expect 2-3 times higher performance than anything else, but it's definitely starting to lean that way, which is why I'm spending a lot of time thinking about this. Will you offer your clients 30% off if you can go quicker? I think it's going to be, these questions, I've got competitors in the audience. I feel that I feel that it's going to be a natural evolution of the way that we work. So when you are selling at a day rate, then the day rate is going to be stated that you're probably going to pay more for an engineer that understands how to utilize AI tools because the output's going to be expected higher. When it comes to project-based work where you're not the only vendor, there's always competition. You don't always want to be basing on price. You want to be basing on value and confidence that the company can deliver. If we can obviously reduce our price, that gives us a competitive advantage against other people to be able to win tenders and obviously take these projects on. Obviously, we can only do that if we're very confident that the tooling that we're utilizing is giving us the performance improvements in place. So I've started to see some competitors, especially like, more on the India side, starting to try and offer even lower prices because they're able to utilize this tooling. I don't feel that the tooling's there yet to feel confident in all types of projects that you can do that. But yes, essentially there is going to be a bit more of price competition if you're able to produce more with the same type of engineering skill set that you had before. Okay, I think the questions have sort of rolled up there. So if there's no more, thank you very much for talking. I'm downstairs by the Vention booth, so come by and say hello at any time. Thanks so much.
Thanks.